Remember the last time you played a tabletop RPG and your friend cast a fireball spell, killing all the enemies and exploding your whole adventuring party? I know they say that living well is the best revenge. Well, how about you play as a living fireball spell and let revenge be the best revenge with Battlezoo Ancestrary's Year of Titans. Once a month for the next year, you'll receive a unique playable species you won't find anywhere else for your D&D 5th Edition or Pathfinder 2e games. Now you can play as a living spell, a skillful cyclops, a wicked troll, or even a mighty kraken. And those are just the ones I can pronounce. An hair jar?
It's pronounced ein hair-jar.
Say tires?
It's satyrs.
Okay, I think I got this one. Dual hand.
Doulahan. It's a headless horseman from Irish folklore, you gigantic tit.
Every month you'll receive a new PDF or Foundry VTT module, along with handmade battle maps, tokens for your virtual tabletop, both static and animated, and detailed in-world lore entries, allowing you to easily add these unique species to your next tabletop session. All this and more for less than a monthly Egg McMuffin. Delicious. Head on over to the link in the description to learn more, because if you sign up for the Kickstarter, you'll get a bonus species a year early, the Mighty Titan. That's 13 unique species throughout 2025 to amaze your friends and family. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to call my dungeon master and tell them that I'm going to be playing as Godzilla from now on. Godzilla.
Look at that. We're live. I'm so lazy today. I didn't shave. I put on my Mets hat. I'm just slumming it. Baron's not in his suit. He's in his sweatshirt. Tennessee shirt. Mark is exactly the same as always. He's in the void with the dragon. Yes, it's the void dragon. He's always there with his map. That's his. Oh, that's right. Hold on.
Oh.
There. Now talk.
There we go.
There we go.
You know what happens every single time?
Yeah.
I'm so tired. I gotta just turn off every single time there's a driver update. It resets all my sounds every single time, and that's when we were struggling with my sound. So I forgot to check your sound. I even made a note here to check your sound, and I forgot. Well, anyhow,
you should put it on the button that you use to go live.
I can't, but I should. I should just. I don't know. I don't know anymore. I was saying how technology is getting to the point. It's so crazy. It's like I do technology for a living, and like this is my bread and butter and everything I know. And yet at the same time it is exhausting. It is so exhausting, this technology. It was more fun when I knew it and no one else knew it. And I was like the cool kid who would help everyone's parents with their computers. And now everyone... I think it's worse now because everyone is sort of good with technology, enough to break it, but not enough to really know what they're doing. So
yeah, I would say that people have gotten worse. Like, for example, and I really hate to be somebody who just picks on Gen Z, and really the problem is very evident in Gen Alpha, that hardware has become so user-friendly and also just so difficult to actually maintain that you need a freaking material science or an engineering degree just to break apart an iPhone or a computer and take it apart and put it back together again. And it's really sad because now electronics are just entirely disposable. So people don't even know what each little constituent part of a computer does. Same with cars. It used to be you could actually tear down a car yourself with some modicum level of, if you had a little tenacity and a little know-how, you could rebuild an engine. Not today.
Well, that's the thing. They're so complex. I mean, it's actually just happened. I mean, I used to build all my computers, and I used to just go get in there and just rip them apart, and I was like, nothing could go wrong. Like it never had any fear of like ripping computers apart because it's not that hard to fix them. It really wasn't. But then my laptop just broke. It literally just broke, and it's like would continuously restart. And I was like, I guess I'm buying a new laptop because it's cheaper to buy a new laptop than to get that one fixed. And I did. I just bought one because it's too hard.
This laptop I'm using has a few small things that are issues with it, but if anything else breaks, it's cheaper for me to just get a new one.
It always is.
I know you two have both talked about the thing with Gen Alpha and like trying to touch Mario on the screen.
No,
But I had experience with that. My 5-year-old nephew was over and he loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I got him a game for Steam that we were all going to play. And he did not know how to use the controller. Just as both of you postulated previously, like months ago on another episode. So, but he learned, and he was able to start using it by the end of the game session. So, you're right on the money there.
Yeah, well, it's disappointing to be right about this stuff, but whatever.
There's a super chat from Mark T. Mark T says Derek is doing a fully produced Altamon song. Mimic boxes are here, and I love them.
I got 3 of them right next to me. Mimic. Hello. See these? Look at this. You should have these at what's your Green Dragon Con?
Green Dragon Fest, yeah.
Green Dragon Fest, whatever. Is that ready yet? Did you finish the website?
The website is going live Monday.
Monday? I was thinking of you today, Baron, because yesterday I launched a Kickstarter. I published a book. And I published 2 Foundry modules. Plus, had to deal with a million other things, and that was a Tuesday.
Too much for me.
I know.
I like having a life.
Tuesday was absurd because of launching the Kickstarter and putting out those things, and I was making a lot of the changes for Steven in there so that he could get that book. It
wasn't just me. Yeah, it's not just me. But
I was also doing other stuff on the next book that had a significant number of words to fill. That was a wild and crazy day, Steve.
I think I figured it out. I think we've put out, it's either 74 or 76 books since we started. Baron, how many have you done? Come on, man. I know you're trying to get one out. Come on.
I actually seriously have 2 that once Green Dragon Fest's website is launched, I'm actually going to start working on.
Okay.
So I've got an idea for an RPG, actually, rather than just creating an RPG for the sake of doing it. I've actually got a real RPG that solves a particular problem in a particular way that I think is interesting.
Okay.
So I'm going to start working on that. And then also, as part of a joint cooperation with the charity I regularly live stream to support, Develop Africa, I am going to be writing an adventure module or like a scenario adventuring area along with a bunch of Gazeter type magic items and monsters and character classes for both OSR and 5e that is inspired by East African mythology and folklore. So and I'm working with a archaeologist, or not an archaeologist, a paleontologist that the Develop Africa crew connected me with. So getting direct access to some seriously cool folklore. Really cool stuff.
Are you going to be doing something at the end of the year? Like that was so much fun last year when we did the build the dungeon.
The 350 or the 365 room dungeon.
Yes, that was so much fun.
I'm not sure my body. I didn't realize how physically exhausting sitting in a chair for 12 hours straight would be, and just focusing on that. It was a lot. I didn't eat enough, I don't think.
Well, no, that was the problem. You did it 12 hours straight. You have to have breaks.
Yeah, I needed to have a 30-minute break.
Yeah, no, you need to do breaks. But that was so much fun. I love that one.
It was fun. But everybody in the chat put what kind of challenge should I do that could be a end of year challenge that I could do in under 12 hours, but would still be an extreme accomplishment. Some sort of speed run for the end of the year.
That was fun. That was cool. By the end, it was totally crazy when everyone was writing.
Nuts. Everybody was just editing into the same document all at once.
You should still do that. You should everyone edit the document all at once. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So we actually have Titans is up now, and do I have the book? I have a fake book. Look at this. Oh, look, it's what you won't get. It's digital only, but I made a book anyhow because why not? So it's a prop this way, but it could be. In fact, it's filled with it's year of
monsters.
Yeah, year
So
of
it's
monsters.
2 years previously.
But it's a good prop because I have a lot of ads coming up. So, and it's hard to hold something up when you're doing digital only. So, but that's going on live now, and we have our first new adventure since Jewel the Indigo Isle, which I said I wouldn't do because adventures are such a nightmare. Ugh, they're so hard to do. But we figured out a way to do it without killing me because we're going to reuse. We have so many books. We're like, you know what? We can reuse a lot of what we already have and put it in new, different, interesting ways. And then voila, I won't kill myself. So there you go.
I have a maybe a horrifying admission for you.
Oh, what's that?
The fact that we're going to connect this book to like just about every previous book that we have created does not actually make it easier in almost any way. It actually adds constraints that will make it slightly more challenging.
Well,
but it's much shorter than the last adventure.
It's a tiny adventure.
That's going to make it easier on you.
It's a very tiny adventure, and I have a map maker.
I'm guessing that it's going to have to be significantly longer than a Pathfinder Society scenario, not because you and I have talked about this in any way, but because of the price that you put it for in the Kickstarter. But it's still going to be much shorter than what we did before. Much.
No, it's going to have to be. It'll have to be. No, it's going to be like a 1 or 2 shot. It's going to be pretty short.
Yeah, more of a 2 shot instead of a 1 shot.
A 2 shot I can
like
handle.
A double length. Yeah,
fine.
It'll be fine.
A 2 shot I can handle. So, are you ever going to do physical Year of Titans or previous Year of Legends? Yeah, I'm going to probably do Year of Legends, but I got to wait for a few things to shake out. But yes, we're planning on doing a Year of Legends hardcover.
It'll depend on how well it's. It'll depend on how well people are liking it, and even if we did, it wouldn't be for like until 2 more years from now when we were looking into that, most likely. So
will be next year for Year of Titans. Year of Legends would be now. So
Year of Legends would be next year.
Next year, right? So
yeah, but Titans. See, you're getting confused and saying Titans sometime when you meant Legends.
Well, I'm reading the book. There's a question. Someone had the question. So
yes, the question was about Titans, but you said it would be next year for Titans, but you meant next year for Legends.
Yes, I meant next year for Legends. Whatever.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, there will be most likely a hardcover. People got the new one. They just came out. It takes a long time though, but we'll see. We'll see. But I will show you something else I got in the mail.
Oh yeah, those are so cool.
Check this out. I'm still fooling around with these skinny minis. They're not really skinny minis. I found the Skinny Minis is a company that makes these plastic. It's a brand, but I found the guy who makes them. So he's no longer secret. It's the same guy, actually. They do the whole thing. They even do the whole dungeon in a box. They actually print out. Get this. They even printed out. Whoops! I didn't even show you this, Mark. They printed out our map.
Whoa! I did not see this. That's great.
Yeah, look, this is the map.
So many people were asking if there could be a physical version of that map, and you said probably not.
Yeah, well, they did it for me. I just sent it to them, and so they printed it up for me and sent it to me. So I'm always experimenting, always reaching new people. And then here's a little mini. Hello. Here's the little Titan. Yeah, because they're clear and then they're double-sided.
One of your most impressive aspects is the way you're always experimenting, reaching out, and finding new stuff. Like, I feel like you do that to the degree that an entire department of people who are involved with that, like in another company, would.
Well, I'm insane. So
it's great. I'm all here for it.
I know. I'm here too for my insanity. Baron knows. He's still at first hand at Gen Con.
Ridiculous.
When I was able to get, I got us reservations on Saturday at Gen Con for like 40 people at a restaurant. How's that possible?
40. It was like 28.
Oh, okay. But we had 3. Did we have like 3 tables or something?
Yeah. It was a lot of damn people.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's what I said. My brother asked me, "What do I do for a living?" And I said, "I get shit done. That's my job, man."
Pretty much.
That's speaking of what we do for a living. So Barrett suggested this topic because supposedly he has a really cool, weird new job where he uses game theory to change the world. I have no idea what he does, but we're going to talk.
So it's not game theory.
It's not even game theory. It's just gaming. It's like,
just
how,
gaming,
how do I take Monopoly and determine the cost of wheat in Spain? Is that what you're doing? Things like that?
No, that's not what I'm doing. So,
Okay.
no, expanded into. So I work for a geopolitical analysis training firm, where we go into organizations and train those private companies on how to effectively start up their own, effectively like their own CIA division, their own open source intelligence division. And
What? Real CIA intelligence? Like
real, like the actual central intelligence agency. Like if a company wanted to start their own internal, intelligence and analysis, like global intelligence and analysis company, how do they do that? So the company I work for trains organizations on how to do that. And one of the things that we have started doing that I kind of pioneered was using effectively role-playing games to create geopolitically motivated simulations of likely future state scenarios of the world, and then using that to either educate or to analyze likely outcomes.
wow.
So
I don't know if that sounds like fun or horrible or depressing.
it's
I've heard that's been used for centuries in like war
Oh, yeah.
and those kind
Yeah.
of theaters for like war
Have you
games
seen the
or-
movie War Games? It's like
Except your GM is like a really experienced general who then will try to tell you what kind of things would have happened if you tried to
Yeah.
do that.
So that goes back. You're talking about a game called Kriegspiel. What was his name? It's some German guy. Kriegspiel. Now you're making me Google it. What was his name? It was developed by the Prussians. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. But they basically won the Reiswitz. That was his name, Leopold von Reiswitz. But through this, they were able to train up their officer corps by simulating likely scenarios that were leading up to the Franco-Prussian War, and it caused the Prussians to just totally dominate. So, and that's Prussians, not Russians, with a P. Prussians, effectively Germans. So, just like to catch up historically where this came from. Obviously, the military had been using games like this. There was a particular, in fact, the original players of D&D, and I have it on account from David Wesley himself, the guy who formed a gaming group with Dave Arneson, that they all used to play Napoleonics and Civil War wargaming, using the actual Civil War rules, like the wargaming rules that were developed for the Civil War by the U.S. military. They used those for their games and adapted them from Napoleonics. And then various other things turned into, I'm not going to get into all the specific details, but it turned into D&D. Between that and Chainmail and some stuff Dave Arnes and David Wesley were doing. That's how it became the Blackmore campaign. But anyway, I guess where do I go from there? So about the time that D&D came onto the scene, that was about the time that computers started to become useful. And we had a really clear vision in the military of what the different kinds of military hardware, both the United States or rather NATO and the Warsaw Pact had access to. So because we had all these newfangled computers, the military started using digital representations of the simulations, and they would just basically crunch numbers. And as soon as the wall fell, the Berlin Wall fell, all those models that they had developed since computing technology had become a thing suddenly became completely moot, because now all of a sudden you had irregular warfare, and all the math and all the science that people had been using in the military in order to judge the outcome of the likely outcomes of kinetic battles became basically useless. So everyone started to figure out, like, how do we actually represent what's actually going on the battlefield to a realistic enough measure so that we can basically play pretend via LARP or tabletop game or role-playing game or whatever. How can we remodel all of that stuff in a way that makes sense? And once the U.S. military really, and the British Navy, for that matter, really started to pick up and started to get a system for really doing this, and this started I'd say in the mid 90s. Once it started to become a serious thing, that's when various non-governmental organizations like the Red Cross or the World Health Organization, they started to realize, wait a minute, we can use these kinds of games for our problems too, whether it's like logistics or supply chain or whatever. And so I have started, or as part of the services, not just training people how to create their own games for analytical research reasons, which I can talk into, like how you actually do that, but also designing games for them. Usually it's just like a light scenario with kind of a canned rule set, and a little bit of training on how to run them. But like right now I'm working on a training simulation game for a DARPA-funded research farm, which is just really wild. I never thought I'd be saying those words. So I can talk about that as well, but I can't go into too many particulars for obvious reasons.
So how good are they? One of my favorite quotes that everyone's probably heard of is Mike Tyson's that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And it's very true. It's like I have all these plans and everything you like set up and simulate, and then you get into the battle, you get into the actual, and then boom, you punch the face and there goes the plan. It's like, how accurate are any of these? Because as you said, it's like I mean, if you want to go back to World War II, what was it? France built up that huge defense against Germany, getting invaded. And then
Never
Germany
expected the Blitzkrieg,
right? And they just went around, like all this stuff. Like it just doesn't, it's like you can only do so much.
Yeah, the Maginot Line, right?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So the trick is they just had really bad intelligence. The French had really bad intelligence to know what kind of threat that the Germans were going to bring during the Blitzkrieg invasion. So, how accurate can you be? Like, all of the simulations that you design are obviously only as good as your geopolitical analysis is accurate. So when you're building out your various future state scenarios of what the world or the region or wherever your operational area of concern might look like, you basically build out, like, and we call this strategic forecasting. You build out what your gut reaction likely scenario is. Like, this is probably what's going to happen. And then there's a process for basically just working through all of your intelligence to say, okay, based on our intelligence and these factors that contribute to this likely future state, we have really strong vibes that this is, like, we have a lot of evidence that proves that this is likely the outcome for this factor. But we don't have a lot of evidence to back up this. So if we're wrong about this, what are the other possible likely scenarios? And basically you just start clicking through all the scenarios that you have really bad intel on and use those to both identify what different kinds of future states might look like, to say, like, if we're wrong about this, then that means this particular trend line or this particular operation is going to go a different direction. What is the likely number of directions that will go? And then if that is different, how does it impact the rest of our related factors? And does that create a new possible future state? And then you basically war game out all of those possible future states. So you're preparing yourself. I at the very least, you do it for the most risky one, the one that, whoever is doing this, you do it for the people that are the ones that are most likely to happen based on your intelligence, and the ones that are most dangerous to your operation, if that makes sense. So you're doing the highest risk because most likely at the bare minimum. Ideally, you have enough time to do all of them. But at the bare minimum, you want to do the most likely and the most risky.
Yeah, you want the mini-max where your opponent makes the worst move for you, but you also want the modal outcome where they are the most likely to show up.
Right. So generally speaking, if you have both of those things, then you're usually not going to be caught totally off guard. So it's one of those... we're going to war game out a scenario that is similar to, very, very similar to this actual future state. Obviously, you're never going to be 100% correct, but it at least gives you and specifically why you war game these things out for an analytical purpose is to think through not just like how you would react, but why you were making the decisions that you were making given the scenario. So having players who play in these games that are that can represent whatever it is that you're trying to do culturally accurately is really important, because you want people who understand whatever factions are operating in the war game, whether that's red team, your enemy, or gray team, if that's like gray or green, sometimes they're called, like, random civilians that are just in the area. If it's, various blue team members like your allies, having people who know through their own intelligence are subject matter experts so that they can represent what those people are likely to do, or know how they would likely respond to other outside movements and actions. That all contributes into identifying, well, these are your likely options given the cultural context. These are even the more narrowly defined options that they would take, and then based on those, you get the opposition will have a different level of appreciation for the kind of response that they can give. So what normally happens if you don't simulate these things out is you'll have a bunch of people sitting around a table, and in the industry they call this a bogsat, a bunch of guys and gals sitting around a table is what that stands for. And they just talk about, like, well, these are our risks, this is the scenario, these are our risks, this is how we cover them. And that's fine enough for like a really quick scenario. If you're just wanting to get a real fast lay of the land, but it doesn't give you any like qualitative response of why would they behave this way. And also you can rerun the simulation multiple times with perhaps different subject matter experts, and or slightly change the starting conditions of the scenario and rerun it with the same subject matter experts, and you'll end up with sometimes wildly different decisions being made, and being in a situation where you can have analysts capture why those decisions were being made can sometimes reveal a absolute load of information as to, well, we thought that it was going to take the Red Cross to deliver these supplies across this river, but it turns out if this one particular thing doesn't work out, the whole plan goes to crap, and we didn't foresee that until we started simulating it. So that's kind of the high level of what I'm working on right now. So I guess I can. It doesn't look like there are too many questions in the chat.
No one has any questions. No one cares. No, I'm kidding. So, okay, wait. I wanted to ask this. So,
Sure.
what do you get? So, client hires you. What do they get? Like, what do they get from you? What do they actually get? Here's a game, and we're going to play this game. Like, is it an actual game? Is it something on the computer?
Actually, it's an actual game.
Like, how do they play it?
So each one is usually bespoke, made for the organization, depending on what their needs are, what exactly their questions are. So just to kind of go into example of the project I'm working on right now for this agriculture research center. DARPA funds some of the research at this place and likes to keep it under wraps. They don't want, like, it's technically public information. I'm not going to talk about exactly what the nature of the research is. I'm not sure how close I am to stepping on, organizational toes by talking about it. But I know for a fact that they don't want it to be blasted what this particular place does. So anyway, they came to us saying, we need a way to rapidly teach all of our farm hands very quickly the different kinds of risks that are around the research center, so that they can be more readily aware of the different kinds of problems that might impact the research. So they're looking for a day-to-day life simulation, and effectively we're working on creating a bad week at the farm as a tabletop game for them to play. So it'll effectively be like somewhere between a board game and a role-playing game, where everybody takes on a particular character, and then there are multiple kinds of scenarios that, like, all of these different kinds of things can happen at the farm, and everybody gets rapidly exposed to the really bad stuff that might happen very quickly. And if you're using, so there'll be like the randomly generated scenario, which, that's always fun, because then even the umpire, or game master for that matter, the umpire doesn't know what's about to happen at the farm that is air quote bad. And everybody just kind of has to figure it out as they're working through a disaster scenario. Or they're trying to train their team for, like, okay, we might have, because we have a tour coming up with a bunch of students, we might have a really bad public relations reaction to something if it gets out. So how do we manage that here at the farm? How do we build awareness on, like, what small things we can do to make sure bad PR doesn't get into the wrong hands? Or, if we have a mechanical failure that causes our manure system to back up into the local municipal water supply, how do we stop that? Or, like, how do we make sure that we're aware of the kinds of things that contribute to that, while we're also handling the daily operation of the farm?
Oh, wait. So wait, is this like, do you ever see that episode of Parks and Rec where they're simulating all that disasters happening in the town? Have you ever seen that?
I've not seen that episode.
You've never seen that? Okay, you have to see it, because in Parks and Rec, this is exactly what happens: is that they suddenly get called into an emergency meeting, and they're simulating like a bird flu outbreak in the town, and then they all have to sit and pretend they're like different departments and like taking care of it, and It sounds like, very similar to what you're doing.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
So anyway, we would go in, and we usually do 3. Usually 3 is enough. Sometimes it's 2. Sometimes it's 5. We'll do a few rounds of data collection, and also work with the stakeholder to just really understand exactly what it is that they're trying to simulate and what they believe their risks are. And then we basically provide documentation to them showing that we, in language, understand what exactly it is that they're trying to simulate, and also request all the data that they can give that helps us make a simulation based on those things. And I'm at the tail end of that first stage right now.
Who's the GM for these games?
I'm sorry?
Who's the game master for these games?
So I will run the first simulation, or I will run 2 simulations, and then there'll be a third one that I train somebody to run, and then they will take the game from there. But then you enter a play testing phase and just iterate through, does the game actually model the technical details that we agreed to model for the purpose of the simulation? And are we able to get like the learning or analysis stuff that we need, the artifacts of that, out of the simulation that we're actually looking for? So we'll go through a few rounds of play testing doing that. Then finally, we'll run it by not necessarily a subject matter expert group, because we don't want to waste their time, but people who are at least aware of what it is that we're actually modeling and representing. And that's like the first real playtest live fire exercise. It's kind of like the alpha version of the software, just making sure that, like, okay, this is very close to the final release. We just want to make sure that the game is legible and it works. And if we give it to people, they're actually going to understand it. And then we'll do a little bit of light coaching, but taking notes on, like, can they just open the box and play the game with minimal help? That's basically what that's for. Then
during the analysis phase or the play phase, do you ever find a situation where, like, somebody's min-maxed a weird strategy that works in the game but wouldn't work in real life, the equivalent of the original Kingmaker building only dance halls and cemeteries in your town because that would make your town super powerful, even though obviously you would never build a town with only dance halls and cemeteries?
Right. So part of that is, like, yes, that could hypothetically happen, and usually you try to figure out, like, what kind of dumb stuff could you do to cheese the game in playtesting. Like, that's part of the playtesting. But also, the reason why you build up to that point and you do your analysis with subject matter experts is because the subject matter experts generally understand, they may not understand, like, what the simulation is or how to do it, but they do know what it is that is actually trying to be simulated. So they know that it's not culturally correct for whatever organization or group. It doesn't matter, if we're talking about like a insurgent faction in Central Africa or the World Health Organization, for example. It doesn't really matter if they could build, a whole row of dance halls. It doesn't make it's not culturally accurate to what they would do or within the range of possibilities of things that they would do. So therefore you use those people, the subject matter experts, and bring them in for the final simulation, where you also have analysts going around and saying, okay, what is your actual turn? What is your action that you're doing this turn? Why are you doing it? Why do you feel that that's the best move? Why do you feel, what were your other options and why did you not do those things? So, by capturing all of that data, then you go into the final stage, which is creating like the after action report, or the final look report, and you pass that back with the game to the client. So they get all that. Not only do they get some kind of an analysis or a resolution on their educational goals if it's a training simulation, but also they get the artifact of the game itself. So if they ever want to, they can go back and pull the game off the shelf and rerun it for whatever reason that they need to.
So someone asked a question: do you actually roll dice?
Yes,
and do people role play? Like, how does the role play work? Like, does someone role play an entire department or entire country or things like that? Or
it depends on the nature of the game. But yes, to all of the above. Like, for example, in the game that I'm making right now, everybody plays as a particular farmhand or a researcher, or somebody who's a mole, like and depending on the scenario, you may be given so, and it's a 2d6 game where you're rolling with bonuses. We're using 2d6s because they're easy to understand for people who are non-gamers. So it's just,
I have a question. It's agriculture and it's a little bit secret, so this is one of the only times I ever might need to clarify, but the person who's playing the mole, are they an animal that is eating the crops, or are they a person who has been sneaked in there that is secretly
no. So
leaking
no. This would be like an exo-national who is from another country and is trying to steal.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I was like, wait a minute, it actually could be the other mole and they're trying to eat the crops.
Right. I got another question. Do you need NPCs, and can I play one? That sounds like so much fun.
No, all the time we need NPCs, but usually we have analysts play as them or something like that.
Aw, that would have been fun.
But if I ever need a backup analyst, I'll let you know, Steven.
Ooh. No, it sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want to do this all the time. Like keep playing the same game.
I think that there's one
yeah.
place you can go. I want to say, is it Quantico? There's somewhere where if you go at the right time, you can be a civilian in one of the games that they play.
They do that all the time when they do like training scenarios for like emergencies, and they need like dead people or infected people, and then you can come. Yeah, I see. Yeah, you can do that.
You can do that, Steven.
I already do that in my day job. Dun dun dun.
You act like a dead person in your day job.
Yes, that's what I do all day here. I'm like, no.
How come I get so many messages from you about things that we're doing? Are you a ghost?
I guess so.
But yeah, so let's see. I'm trying to think like the kinds of stuff. Like right now, I'm working on the research farm one, and it's basically the same game where every player is working together. So it's co-opetition. They're working together to maintain the farm, while every individual also has their own goals that they're trying to get victory points for. So it could be that you're playing a researcher who's trying to get their research done. And yes, there might be a disaster happening at the farm, but you've also got to meet your own personal deadlines. And then there's somebody else who, let's say that they're a graduate student who's got a job working at the research farm. And now nobody knew this because their background check didn't do a good job. They are part of some like wing of PETA, who is going to sneak in and start taking pictures of all the terrible things that happen at the research farm and blast it all over the internet. So, everybody has their own goals, and the operation itself also has its own goals. So it's one of these games where everybody is trying to keep the farm moving while also getting all of their own conflicting things done, and how that disrupts, how those small misalignments, like everybody is mostly marching in the same direction usually. But, it could be that everybody's mostly marching in the same direction, but there's friction as everybody kind of like jockeys and steps on top of each other. And that's kind of what that talks about. There's another one I did that role plays through what happens when two red cell hacker teams are attacking the financial system of a large national company. So how does the company itself manage to being attacked by, like, they know about one group, but then there's a second red cell group of hackers that are both attacking the company and the first red cell group. So it's one of those, like, what happens when we come under attack for geopolitical reasons from two cells of attackers at the same time? And is the organization itself robust enough? It's basically a test. Is the organization's culture itself robust enough to withstand being attacked? And do they actually have like clear process and clear pecking order of, like, because the corporation that I was working with is so federated, there are multiple departments that all have their own competing goals, and they can usually, walk through them in a meeting room and decide, okay, well, you're going to take precedence this week on this particular point, and we'll take precedence next week. And everybody just kind of, politely figures it out. But in the case of a scenario like your data systems are under attack, do you shut everything down and stop all the operations? Because that's going to make the salespeople real mad. Do you try and keep everything up? Do you run in a degraded state? Do you go to pen and paper mode, et cetera, et cetera? So, testing, does the cybersecurity team actually have a handle on what the correct order of operations is? Does the leadership team actually have a robust enough understanding of their own personal, what is their crisis? You have a normal organizational chart, but what does their crisis organizational chart look like? Is that understood and clear enough? stuff like that. So that's another one I worked on.
So we do have actually a ton of questions, and I know you have to
let's
go
get
soon.
into it.
So I got a lot. So I saved them all up. I'm going to go backwards. Could you use this system to predict unprecedented political landscapes?
I'm actually working on a I don't want to call it an RPG. I'm working on something that is like a world building tool / game inspired by some of this stuff. I've only tried to run through it 2 times. I don't know. I need to poke around at it and figure out what it is more. But I originally wanted to model like what happens in a Venetian court when the prince dies and all the politicians start vying for control. It rapidly became something other than that. But I don't know. Yes, I'm working on something like that. I'm playing around with it.
So is this basically private black ops training?
It can be. It absolutely.
I mean, it can be, but it doesn't sound like what you're working on, at least right now, is not.
Right. But like, for example, a physical security company, Reed, military contractor, like small arms military contractor, like Wagner Group or Blackwater could say, hey, we need to go through all the scenarios for managing a insurgency attack on this supply depot. How do we model all of those things?
Man, you and I got to talk at Next Gen Con, because I have done security for finance and computer security. I'd be very curious to hear your stories versus my stories. This is very interesting. I didn't realize, well, the stuff I all do is technology based, but yeah, it's
all pen and paper, baby.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very different. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just was like, you're the only person I've met who actually does this sort of stuff.
I've just started doing this within the past couple months. So.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. This is new for my job. So.
Oh, okay, neat. Oh, that's why we didn't talk about it last time.
Exactly,
because you weren't doing it. This is interesting. Yeah. Well, my stuff doesn't. My stuff doesn't translate to TTRPGs. It's all computer based. What are the most transferable GM skills for this kind of job?
Knowing when to say no, for sure. Also, I think what's really interesting is knowing when to say no, knowing how to design scenarios. I think I'm going to answer a different question because I think it's a better question than what is being answered, but it's inspired by this one. I think what I am most able to take back from working on projects like this to dungeon mastering is, when designing games for serious reasons, the whole point is to design mechanics that really get into the details that allow you to test and analyze what exactly is the nature of the question. Like, what is the goal of this analysis or this training? So, and how do the mechanics reflect that? So that's probably been the biggest takeaway from me going back into like a hobby industry, or like not, fun games instead of serious games, is that now I have a really clear understanding of what good homebrew is, because I understand that like doing something cool is cool for homebrew, but it's also taught me at a much more visceral level, like how to really think about what exactly is the goal here of the homebrew. Like what am I actually trying to accomplish that the rules don't actually do? And same with adventure design. Like, is there a very specific thing that I am trying to showcase as story? That's where I'm going to put all of my attention for the narrative and for any like fun one-off mechanics I'm going to make for that. And then I'm just going to get rid of everything else because it's not important. So, abstract the things that are unimportant and add detail to the things that are. And I think what's really interesting is Brennan Lee Mulligan actually, in some interview I saw somewhere, talked about why combat, and I've got 10 minutes, why combat is so crunchy in 5th edition, and it's because he already knows how to do role play. He doesn't know what fantasy superhero combat looks like, so he uses all of these crunchy rules in order to help him simulate what that might be. And that's probably the most transferable thing is just being able to reframe what exactly am I analyzing? What exactly am I trying to simulate? That's the stuff that I need to add mechanics to. And then also a process for analyzing, do those mechanics as designed actually reinforce the goal? Are they actually doing those things?
So we got a couple quick ones.
Sure.
Important question. Who won the craft off at MythCon?
Not me. I got handed a sci-fi model.
Was
You gotta
it-
build a diorama based
Was
on
it
the model you get.
DM Scotty? Well,
It was
didn't
DM Scotty.
really? Because Professor
Oh,
Dungeon
yeah.
Master came in second, though. I thought.
Yeah, he did. He got one of the runner-up. There were a few runner-up prizes. I think he got the first runner-up.
I'm definitely going to Mythicon because I love building dioramas. I didn't know that was
so
part
fun.
of it. Yeah.
And you've got like 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
It's a
I
brutal
love
speed run.
dioramas. I used to build them in elementary school all the time. Let's see. We had another weird one. Okay, here's a very obscure question. Barrett, any suggestions for playing the Traveler RPG 5th Frontier Wars as a war game rather than a traditional TTRPG? Can you answer that?
I've read 5th Frontier War.
Well, there you go. So I figured you either knew the answer right away or you're like, nope.
Frontier War. Hold on, I'm checking to do it. 5th Frontier War Traveler. As a war game?
I haven't played Traveler since like 1982.
Oh man, is it a board game? It looks like it's a board game.
Traveler RPG 5th Frontier. That's a war game. No, it's supposed to be a TTRPG. I don't know. I don't play it.
No, I'm poking around at a video right now. This question has stoked my curiosity. I don't know the answer, but I'm gonna look into it.
There you go. Let's see. What else do we have? Does anyone ever publish these games? Do any of the clients publish their findings anywhere, or is this all secret?
That's very unlikely that they would ever publish it. Usually, there's 2 categories of people that will publish the stuff that they get made for them in this way. Those are going to be usually political action think tanks. So think CSIS, Heritage, Hoover Institute, those kinds of places. What else? Sometimes the military will declassify old games. Like if it's 20, 30 years out of date, they will roll them out. If like geopolitical situations have changed, technology has changed to a degree that it's completely and utterly irrelevant, the U.S. military will usually declassify their old games. They usually have to declassify them so that they can send them to the various military colleges so that students can analyze them for historical purposes. Outside of those 2 situations, most of this stuff does not get it is not public. The kinds of stuff that we're analyzing are questions that these organizations have, and they're really careful who they ask them because they don't even want to telegraph that they're asking these questions. They don't want people to know that they're curious about some of these things because that might indicate to competition or to other competing political interests. Political organizations that they just have interest in these things. And sometimes you can like backward deduce just based off of the question, what exactly are these people up to? Case in point, what was it? I think BlackRock's global analytics division had a leak where they were running a simulation, like a tabletop simulation for what would happen if wide-scale inflation caused physical currency to become a serious risk issue for for banking insurance purposes. And they were just role playing through that whole scenario. Now, on one charitable end, it's they want to protect their investors' money. On the other end, it's are they doing this so that they can reverse engineer a situation that would cause this cash to suddenly be useless? So when people put tinfoil hats on and they start looking at what kinds of questions are these simulations being asked, it becomes very easy to be very cynical as to why some organizations might want to keep some of this stuff private. So,
yeah, but at the same time, I mean, I don't know. It seems like these are good exercises and thought experiments, but I am curious to see how useful they are in the real world. I mean,
it can be very hit or miss when the games are designed well and map onto what's going on.
That's what I was going to say. If they're mapped onto very specific items that have a lot of history, or it's like it's so hard to you can't predict what you can't predict. You don't know what you don't know.
The step where they have to explain why they took the action they took, maybe one of the most useful, was even if the game was wrong,
exactly,
you at
that's
least
true.
If their explanation was bad, the person who's like in charge could be like, okay, but that was not a good reason to do that thing, and that might inform a real decision-making process.
Right. Usually the qualitative reasons for that come out of a simulation are usually the thing that's actually more useful than the quantitative thing.
Okay.
Like, this particular, supply chain would last 6 months during a Somali pirate attack incursion or something like that. That's far less interesting than how do we deal with that? Or why am I making the choices to deal with that kind of a problem?
That is interesting. That is all the questions here.
That's good, because he only had 4 more minutes.
4 minutes before I got to get on a meeting.
And then talk about this to people.
Yeah, actually.
We're people.
Well, people who are paying him.
Yeah.
We're not.
I'm happy to stay if you pay me twice as much, Mark.
I don't need a. It's not that important, unfortunately. Wow, this is pretty cool, though. How many people work on these with you? Because I imagine these have to be very complex. Oh, that's it?
Just me and 2 other people. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's a small company, so.
Wow. And people actually pay for this. I'm just so fascinated. It's like, oh yeah, we want you to run some scenarios and come up with a gamification plan for if this happens. How do we it's I guess it's and I don't know. It's an unknown aspect of my life to outside of like security testing for actual physical. Data centers, things like that.
Right.
But that's
you're talking about like doing hackathon days where like a team of hackers tries to get inside.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, basically, it's a little different. Like what we have, not really, but what we do is we'll have to do security and assessment analysis because like I have a lot of Fortune 500 companies, so they basically send us like 100-page document to fill out, and we have to like literally go through every aspect. And some of that is penetration testing, where we actually do have outside firms whose their specialty is to attack our systems to see how they get in and how to fix those holes. But, it's one of those things. It's strangely hard and not hard because you can turn off pretty much everything. And almost all the holes are either holes that are accidents and you just turn them off, but where it's literally just friggin' social engineering. I mean, it's like at this point, it's all social engineering because
it's all social engineering,
it is. Yeah. It's just so, it's actually quite easy to make your systems pretty robust and to be able to fight 99.99%. I'm not talking about state-sponsored attacks because that's at a whole other level. That's literally
go look up the first ever documented cyber war between Estonia and Russia. That shit will blow your mind.
Yeah, those are levels that are way even past. Those are way past my pay grade. Yeah, but I'm talking about, as I say, 99.9999% is fine, and you won't be able to get in. But it's literally it's all those phishing emails you get. It's just social engineering, I even got one today that said, "Oh, Microsoft charged me for something," and this really, and I mean, I delete everything, and even I was like, "Wow, this one looks so real, and I went to the right email address, like, because I have multiple email addresses, and they even, like, I have one email address just for, like, buying stuff and everything else, so it actually went to the right email. I was like, and I actually went onto Microsoft to double check, and of course it was, like, fake, and I was like, this one, this is good, like, this one, even I had to check this one.
Good, man. They're getting really good. I nearly got hit by an old sponsor. Sent an email out to a bunch of people, and I think it was I managed. Fortunately, I opened the email on a computer that I wasn't logged into my YouTube account, but I think it was one of those like cookie stealing hacks that you would accidentally install something.
Oh yeah, my wife and my kids now, and they're like, Dad, is this? I'm like, it's fake. It's like, before I even get, like, whatever you're getting, it's fake. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's always fake, except for the 1% of the time it's not. But, I'm like, does it seem fishy in any way, shape, or form? I do always feel bad, because when my kids were younger, they'd be like, Dad, I got this email that says this, back when they were trusting. It's like, like, oh, Dad, I hate to tell you, that's fake. It's so, it's, you know what? I think that's worse. By the way, spoilers, that Santa Claus doesn't exist. It's like, oh yeah, all those emails saying you get like free things. That's not real. I'm sorry. And they're like, oh. So
anyway,
all right, go to your meeting.
Guys. But thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yes.
And thanks for all the good questions too, chat.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes. Actually, I'll just do you and me, Mark, for 5-10 minutes. See ya.
Take care, Baron.
He's gone. Now it's just me and Mark.
That's right. So I think that we can use D&D, Pathfinder, and these kind of tools in the real world too. Like, it doesn't have to be a war game style scenario like what Baron is doing. You can use kind of like role-playing game setups to model other things. Like, to model situations, or like, I've even seen it done in a meta role-playing way to try to teach GMing by playing a role-playing game where the person who's learning about like GMing for a difficult situation is pretending to be a GM, and everyone else is pretending to be players who set up this weird situation, but then they like offer advice after the fact or see how the person responds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, GMing, I think TTRPGs, there's a couple of books out. There's one book out called Warp, I think it's called, that's about this. There's been books about this whole concept of gaming to help you better live your life and understand your life. And what is fascinating is that so many TTRPGs is not just role-playing, but actually improv. And this is why it's so popular in Hollywood. Like, it's almost underground in Hollywood. It's getting a little more above ground, but like, Hollywood actors love TTRPGs because it's like, I get to act, and it's a game, and like, this is like, their dream house. But it really does teach you to think fast on your feet, and to improv, and to come up with scenarios, and to go with the flow. I mean, I can't even think of how many times that I've been in your real life where you put into awkward situations where I've seen other people who obviously don't game that are just like freaking out or start fighting or turn into like, it just like they go to their fight or flight reflex and immediately start doing one of those two, as opposed to
roll for initiative.
Right, we roll for initiative. Like, it's like, oh no, let's look at this.
Roll for combat.
But no, it's not even roll for combat. They're rolling for combat, or they're literally fighting or fleeing. I mean, how many times have you seen people like start screaming, like, and you're like, it's a public place, because that's like their go-to is one of those two. And then you see the people who are either like TTRPGers or have this in their day job or do deal with this a lot. They're just calm and just start dealing with it and looking at the situation and coming out with a resolution, as opposed to just going off, and that's pretty much being a GM all the time. Is doing that. And I think, especially, my daughter said something to be really funny. She's going to college to become a teacher, and she's at she's overseas right now, and they went on like a week travel thing where everyone there is like teaching the same subject. And I was like, oh, how do you like, your other classmates? And she's like, ugh, they're so annoying. I said, why? It's like, everyone here is training to become a teacher. So all the students are always trying to teach the other students. And I was like, that's got to be so annoying because everyone's a teacher. So it's teachers trying to teach each other. I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, it's so annoying. Just shut up and listen to what the actual teacher has to say as opposed to the other students trying to be teachers, which makes me think whenever you go to a TTRPG gaming conventions, everyone is so friendly and everyone's so talkative and everyone's so, I guess because they're all gamers and they're used to this like, outward socialization. Not everyone's, outgoing, but a lot of them are. So it's usually such a fun time. Maybe, and that's part of it is that you go to a gaming, go somewhere where everyone's a gamer and everyone is gaming with each other and acts like everyone else is a gamer. And then they want to come out and game with each other. I can only imagine if you go to a teacher conference that everyone's trying to teach each other, whether they wanted to or not. So I can only imagine if you're going to a confrontational conference, and everyone's like fighting each other. It's like it's like you get the same types of people. So, anyhow, I've been going on way too much. Oh, here we go. From personal experience, future teachers make the most annoying students. There we go. That's what my daughter said. She's like, "Oh, these students are so annoying." That's like I'm just trying to learn, and they're all trying to teach me, and none of them know what they're talking about. I was like, "Yeah, that sounds about right." So,
but teachers are also very good GMs.
Oh, we did a thing at Gen Con. Every single game designer was a teacher at one point, it seems. All of them. Right? And there
are a lot who weren't, but it's not nearly that universal, but a lot of GMs who are really good get some of the skills from teaching.
No, this was at our dinner, like with Kelsey Dion, because she was a teacher, and like Baron, like it was one of those, and like obviously Professor Dungeon Master is a teacher. So we were going around, and then when we're like everyone was a teacher at one point. So that's I don't know outside of our group, and in that little group of people who either are YouTubers or have built and designed games, like Kelsey, were teachers, which is
outside of that, most aren't. I was, but
I
most
am.
aren't.
There was, yeah. I mean, it is fascinating. But isn't everyone
obviously
a
Linda
teacher?
Was, but...
Right. Well, it's like, but I guess it's like, what's your definition though of teacher? Because it's like
I'm counting it if you actually were a teacher who taught in schools or in as a professor or teaching assistant in a university.
Okay.
Not just like you taught some side things to people one time at your work because you had to help train a new employee.
Right.
Although that honestly helps you for GM skills too, but I wouldn't say that person is a teacher at that point.
I see. Yeah, I would think that. So we do have some pretty good questions in here. So, yeah, I didn't know how much longer we wanted to go. If anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, fun stuff, today's kind of a relaxing day. You wouldn't think that. Here's the thing about Kickstarters. It's a ton of work. It's a huge amount of work to get them up and running. But once they're up, it's not a lot to do. I mean, we kind of just watch it and we update it and I answer questions. But other than that, it's like...
The first day was pretty hectic. There were a lot of questions.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
And if you have any questions about the Kickstarter at titans.rollforcombat.com in chat today, we can answer it for you too. Because it just launched yesterday. So wouldn't be weird if you did.
We
tried to make sure it was as intuitive as possible and a little less complicated to understand than some of the other ones. I think we managed that.
Yeah, we're trying new things out. Do you all publish indie TTRPGs? Elder Goblin games? Yes, of course we do. Well, do we publish TTRPGs? Do we publish our own systems? Not really. We publish for Pathfinder and 5e, but you can almost say Eldamon is like its own game. Like, it depends.
I have written my own systems before, but not published through you.
Right. Mark co-wrote Pathfinder, second edition.
Yes. So my systems that I wrote were published by Paizo,
yes.
and of course co-wrote, because you can't write a system of that size by yourself without like massive amounts of time.
Right. So yes, now we've put out, I think it's 70. I got to do the full count because I don't know how we do the free books. If you do the free books, it's something like 80. It's either like 70,
I think you should count the free
78.
books.
Then
So
it's
that
about
means you have-
80.
that-
It's
that
about
means you have
80
to-
books.
You were the 100, Steven. You need to update your bio. Also, we should update my bio on the Kickstarter to 200 plus, because
Sure.
I have started doing that now because I hit the 200 mark.
Yeah, it's something
We've done
like
so many.
I know it's so many, and some of them are big. That's the thing. It's like these are big books, big freaking books. Oh, I got the special edition cover for Dragons, by the way. This came in,
That is so good.
and all the dragons.
And all the dragons on the back.
I know. Look how good he looks. I love how he's like smoking the pipe. He's like, hello, this is my book.
Hello, everyone.
It's my
Let
tome.
me tell you about dragons.
I know, it's very cool. So this was our limited edition cover that we're printing for Dragons. I don't have the other ones yet.
So limited. Only Steven has it.
It's pretty limited. I had to go through 4 copies of this because it printed out very dark, and I had to keep lightening it. Well, it's on black, so you learn.
That makes sense.
So, and it's like all this special printing. So that's like what I've been doing. But let's see. People are rating me. So let's see. For the digital Kickstarter, what's the time frame for the coming physical books? About a year. Well, we have to finish the Kickstarter because
it's more than a year.
Well, no. They become a physical book in probably a year and a half, 2 years, right?
Years.
Because
so let's think about this.
Okay.
So we have Year of Legends, right? We are 2 weeks away from the final Ancestry coming out.
Two final Ancestries.
Two final Ancestries. All the PDFs will be out. Well, the final one and 2 if you didn't get the Kickstarter.
Right.
Because that's when you'll get Devils at the end.
Right.
So at that point, we've gotten great sales on Legends. We're almost definitely going to do a hardcover. So at some point next year, like early-ish in the year somewhere, we'll do some kind of probably a crowdfunding for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll need to add the stretch gold. We'll need to stitch it together. There's going to be some new art. We'll get all of that done, just like Classic Creatures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that'll take some amount of time, probably mostly for the art, to be honest, but we'll see. Some number of months. Ooh. Then we'll get the PDF of the consolidated version to people, and then it needs to print and ship. So I would expect that it could arrive sometime around like the end of 2025, maybe, right? But maybe the beginning of 2026. It'll depend on shipping. What happens with worldwide shipping at that point in time?
We'll get into that. That's a depressing topic.
That later. We will not talk about that today.
Nope, I'm not getting into that.
The point is that if you think about it, we are currently in 2024 doing a Kickstarter for Year of Titans. Right. So you definitely wouldn't get a hardcover until 2026.
Yeah. So because we have to wait the whole year. So
this is not necessarily 2 full years, but 2 years at least.
Here we go. For those of you who are still here, because there's only about 70 people, the plan is that we are going to do a hardcover, but there's a lot going on. We're still getting Dragons done. We still got Elemental Storm. There's a lot. So I want to get a few more things out and done before I commit to the next one. But the plan is to do this. I have the person who does all of our covers. He's making the cover for this now.
Oh man.
Yeah, I didn't even tell Mark
it's real at that point because those covers are very
well.
expensive.
It takes like 2 months. It takes 2 months.
They take a long time and they're expensive. So Steven's not going to commit that if he's not going to do it. So you heard it here first.
99% chance we're going to do it. We're going to
nearly an ironclad commitment to doing it at some point.
We're going to do it. It's just I have to figure out timing, and I got to figure out. There's a few other things I won't get into, but we got to figure out.
We hit a lot of stretch goals for a lot of our last ones, and we've got more to do. So it makes sense. Yeah. Plus, adding this adventure for Year of Titans is not as hard as the big gigantic one, but it will take time.
Well,
So,
nothing's going to be. That was a 250,000 words, dude. This one's going to
Yes,
have
it
to
was.
be
yes, it
like,
was.
I am not
This
also.
one will be like what? 10% of that probably.
Yeah, I'm definitely. Linda doesn't have to be as verbose and crazy that I did the first one, because well, to me, because also that first one was a huge epic story, Joel the Indigo Isle, so it had to hit so many beats. This is a little heist. We're talking about Release the Kraken, where you literally have to go find a Kraken who's been wrongfully put in jail and release
and
him.
absolve that Kraken so the Kraken can be released.
So you release the Kraken from jail.
That's right.
There.
I just love the wordplay on it. How you think it's going to be just like an evil giant Kraken is released by some kind of evil mastermind, but actually it's released the Kraken in that way.
Yes. So that was, well, the funny thing, because I told Mark I want the name to be Release the Kraken, and then Mark is, well, we can't do it. It's going to be high level. It's going to be underwater.
I thought it would have to be high level and underwater because people would expect a Kraken to be released on them.
Right. And then
Steven
I go,
pointed
no.
out, what if we did wordplay? What if we did wordplay on it?
And I'm like, no. Release the Kraken from jail.
Wordplay was much better. That was so much better because I did not want it to be some high level underwater adventure that nobody could use.
No. That's a level.
This is so usable.
It's a fifth level adventure.
If you can have an island turtle show up,
yes,
and it's technically, even though it's a sea turtle, it probably could go on land a little bit slowly. So if you're nowhere near a coast, you could still figure out how to make a giant turtle appear. If you can do that, you can use this adventure at 5th level in your campaign.
And that's the other thing,
it would fit perfectly in Jewel of the Indigo Isles after chapter 6 when you're on your boat and you're leaving Bluebell, because you're the exact right level.
Yep.
I think it's like, it's either before or
chapter
after chapter 6.
6
You're the exact right level. You're heading out on the boat.
6th level, but yeah.
And
no, that would be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the point is that there is a Kraken in jail. You're going to an island that's on a turtle. So the island can appear in any adventure, anywhere. We're very much like, people talk about you can, quote, insert your adventures into your gaming. And I hear that all the time, but they don't mean it. I'd say most of them are like, I read these sometimes, I'm like, it's like, this has to take place in a desert. It's like, well, I don't have it. You know, like, it's like, no, this is, do you have water? Which probably you do. Again, if you're in the middle of the desert,
you don't,
then
the sea turtle could be on land.
Exactly. The turtle could appear out of the earth, and maybe, or it's a flying sea turtle. Like, we can make it.
It's a powerful turtle. It could go on land. It's not fast on land, but it could do it.
Oh, it definitely can. Right. So
given the fact that something's going wrong with the turtle, and that's why the Kraken is being imprisoned, because the Kraken is suspected of being a cause, that could be a good reason for the turtle to be in a weird or wrong place. We may even have Linda write a sidebar about, what if we're not near the water? What should we do to handle that?
So the stretch goals, and we don't have print or print on demand. So print on demand is incredibly expensive. Like, it is, I mean, I can do print on demand, but it'll be like over $100 a copy. So, and the quality is not as good. It's extremely expensive to do print on demand, and it's just not as good. So that's the first problem. The second problem is that if I'm going to do a print run, I'd rather do a really nice print run. And the third problem is that if we use just what's in the Year of Titans, it might only come out to, I don't know, it might come out to almost about 200, maybe 180, 200 pages. It's not like quite big enough. So it's hard to justify charging $100 for a book that's going to be 200 pages, you know, something like that. So it just doesn't balance itself out. I won't get into, there's other reasons too, but then if you turn it into an actual book that we balance, we get feedback because people have given us feedback, we add new features,
and we don't have to charge $120 or whatever because it's not print on demand. That's the key.
We charge a normal price, Print on demand is it's weird. Print on demand works very well in very, very specific situations. If you're going above about, it's like if you're doing between 100 to maybe 200 to 300 books, it's okay. But once you go above that, it doesn't scale. It doesn't scale above a couple of hundred books. We start our prints at 1,000, 2,000 books. So, and that's what we start at. And actually, I'm starting to even go up to 3,000 books. So I can't do print on demand. It's like 3,000 books would be like, I don't know. It comes out to like $16 a book. So you figure out the math. It's insane. It's maybe $20 a book. So it's too expensive. It just is too expensive. Anyhow, get into all the little thing. And then also the physical, like this actually is print on demand and it's good. But you can't do things like you see this, like I can't do, you see it's like a little bubbly there too. Like they don't do as good of a job. This can't be printed on, And I mean, it actually looks pretty good. The paper's a little weird. Like the paper's a little off. Wow, actually the paper has a raised, what is this? So weird. It actually, I can feel the ink on the paper. I've actually, It's so strange. So yeah, now it's like, and also this is the other weird thing. Here, you want to hear the weirdest one? These books are slightly did they change the size of these books? No, they did not. So here's the crazy part. All Pathfinder D&D books are a 1/4 inch shorter than other books. So if you look, it's not quite the right size too. You see the one that's a little above, that's the print on demand book. See, so these books are a 1/4 inch too big. So it's like all these little things you don't think about. In fact, it's kind of annoying. Like all these books are a 1/4 inch shorter, and whoever came up with the first book size, now they're all the same size. But I'm looking at Kobold. Kobold actually uses a different size, which I didn't realize. Anyhow. There you go. I'm getting way into the weeds of like how these books are printed.
Like it, though,
I know. Yeah, well, people want to know how this stuff is done. So ETN, the physical dragon books. So these books, this book is coming in. It's being shipped now to our plant, but probably won't be here till February. Fairies is at the printer, but we added more pages to the book. It actually was ready to go, but we just added more pages to the book.
We added an index to help you find the dragon stuff more easily.
Right. So we added an index. There's been some feedback. So it's up to, I think we're going to be up to version 4, and I don't want to print it just yet. And whether I do the printing today or like in 2 weeks, it really doesn't matter. Like the schedules are kind of weird right now because of the holidays and other things going on. So like, you don't want to wait like 6 weeks, but a week or 2 here isn't going to matter. So it actually was at the printer, it was ready to go. And then we added the index last week, and I told the printer, stop. I'm like, don't do it yet. In fact, just wait, because we're going to like figure out, we're going to redo the inside. And it actually affects every page because I actually had to add the appendix on the right-hand side. So every page has to get reprinted. So it's not even like I'm changing 2 pages. I had to rechange the entire book. Also, the problem with the index is, I don't have enough room in text. There's a huge hole. So I just asked our artist to come up with a new picture of, actually, you don't even know this, Mark, because this happened today, is our narrator is going to be standing there in the index with his pipe and a book looking at you. Going,
makes sense.
He's going to be like,
I figured you were going to do something with that, or that you might like get rid of the curse of magazines from Paizo and just let it be white space since it's an index.
Nope. Are you kidding? I know.
You will allow that curse to hang above your head.
We will never allow
as
that.
Does.
No,
the curse of the magazines.
No, it's. Yeah, well, I grew up. You see, my first layout was laying out a newspaper. Okay,
that makes sense.
And there's
so you have that in inside you. It will never
There's
leave. It's
no
a demon.
white space in newspapers ever. And we would fill them either by writing more content, or we would put in, at least for newspapers, we had PSAs, public service announcements, so we can put in like free ads. So if we had a space that was too big and we just couldn't fill it, we can put in PSAs into different size ad spaces. I'll talk about white space. So if you look at here, I'll get really into the weeds if people are interested.
Like, because D&D has white space in some of the
all
places.
books.
Everybody does except for Paizo and Roll for Combat.
Yeah, actually, Cobalt does a pretty good job. They don't really have a lot of white space in theirs. Who else? Pretty much everyone has white space at the bottom of their books. Well, let's see.
I honestly
Actually,
think
they
that
don't
white,
either.
White space is better than just doing weird copy fit stuff, but weird copy fit stuff is fine too.
So actually, D&D doesn't have. Okay, so if you look at the very bottom of this is the D&D book, you can see like the text doesn't go all the way to the bottom, and it's just some white space. Some space, some are better than others. Like that, it goes all the way to the bottom, but it's very noticeable when you have a 2-column spread like this, where you have the white space not going all the way to the bottom. I hate that, and there's other reasons. I won't get into it. It solves one problem and then causes others. So by having white space at the bottom, it actually can really mess up your layout if you have to repaginate. So it's actually seems like it's easier, but it's actually not. And I won't get into the reasons. You still have to do copy fit, even if you have white space at the bottom. I grew up both with Paizo books and my first serious job of laying things out was for a newspaper. There's no white space in newspapers. I also did magazines. There's no white space in magazines. So I never had white space in anything I ever laid out, ever. I used to also work in advertising. There's no white space in advertising unless it's on purpose. So there's no such thing as white space. It doesn't exist in my world. So when I went to this, and the first thing, and thank God Mark is used to it, I was like, there's just not going to be white space. I'll make it fit. But I do the layout, so it's put on me. It's not like I'm giving this to someone else. I'm the one who has to make it fit, and it's like a puzzle. The good news is I'm pretty good at making it fit. And then whatever's left over, I give Mark, and if I don't write it, then I give it to Mark to write, especially if it's crunch, I don't touch it. If it's lore, I'll write some of it sometimes. So, but yeah, so we just make sure all of our content fits at the bottom. I'm talking too much. I did get this very cool new book called the Monster Overhaul book, which is pretty interesting way of organizing monsters because they do it based on families. And they have like here monsters based on people, dungeons, dragons, thinking beasts, divine, dark. There's a whole chapter called The Wizard Did It. They have spring, summer, fall, winter, hot plains, stormy seas. That's just a very interesting way to organize your creatures. So if you want to look up, let's see, The Wizard Did It. Actually, I'm curious. What is
I'm sure that has things like owlbears where the explanation for how this creature can be is some wizard made it.
Yeah,
there
we
are
have
a lot of
animated items, elsewhere creatures, eye tyrants, let's see, golems, homunculuses, mind eaters, mutants, rust monsters, and shivered beasts. So they have 10 types of monsters. They have subspecies from those. But it's a pretty interesting book. I mean, it's like OSR type book, but it's actually pretty good. It's also huge. Here, I'll show you something else I got, which I really like. Oh, I got this crazy new adventure called Completely Unfathomable. Look at that. Isn't that cool for DCC?
That is a really cool cover.
Yeah, but
how unfathomable is it?
It is bizarre beyond bizarre. Like the art is here. Here's like one of the guys you hang out with.
Okay, that seems completely unfathomable to me.
No, it's pretty cool. It's actually it's got some the art is beautiful. I mostly got it for the layout and the art. It's like, this is pretty cool. They tell you the story through a comic book. I like that. Yeah, that I've never seen before. So something else I did like is that they also have any of these? Oh, here it is. There's a whole sub-chapter where all these creatures have replaced their heads with like little what is it, satellite dishes. So they're like these scientists, and it's a pretty bizarre adventure. It's to say the least. There's like a lot of weird stuff going on in this adventure. I do like it quite a bit. I do like, you see this is what makes, you can always tell whenever you see an OSR or old school, because you see these are tertiary colors. And you'll notice it if you look around, is that old school essentials and all these, they will use not primary colors, not even secondary colors, but tertiary colors, where they'll use like these purples and greens and blues, but they're like these bizarre type of colors that almost like are like a blacklight poster type cover.
Well, you know what? We used quaternary colors for the wild dragons, vermilion,
we did
indigo, and harlequin. And cerulean,
yes,
and amber. Those are quaternary colors.
Yeah.
So they're not primary, they're not secondary, and they're not tertiary. They're quaternary.
Well, that was on purpose, because remember when you and I, this when we were first working together, I looked at all the primaries, they were taken. I looked at all the secondary colors, they were taken. I looked at the tertiaries, and I was like, wait, let's keep going. And then we go to the quaternary. I'm like, okay, no one's taken these colors yet, so this is where our dragons will come from. It's like, you gotta.
Great, it worked out.
I actually like those colors. Those are fun colors.
Yeah, I like them a lot. Secret backstory of the names of the wild dragons.
Yeah, well,
they sticking around to the end.
Well, that
work, everybody.
Well, that's right. It's like, where does vermilion and indigo? Well, if you looked at it, you'd figure it out, because they're all in the same color family.
Well, yeah, and people who play like Pokemon had a lot of quaternary colors in the original for like the names of towns. So you might be like, hey, I've seen some of these in Pokemon Red and Blue. So they weren't all quaternary in Pokemon Red and Blue, just like some of them were.
Oh, someone did have a question. Will the Titans campaign get a physical release?
So like the campaign or the adventure?
No, the physical.
The adventure basically won't, because it's so short. But the campaign, as we mentioned earlier in the stream, if it does well, then it might. But it wouldn't be until another 2 years from now in 2026 when we would start asking that question and maybe doing something about raising for it if it did well.
Yeah, I mean, basically, and we would add to it like we did before. So,
yeah,
like the classic creatures.
We're always going to do that.
Yeah, so you're not going to get, it's not going to be exactly the same. And in fact, if you look at Year of Monsters, I mean, if you want to use the Year of Monsters PDFs, you can, but they haven't been updated. And Classic Creatures
so they're missing all the stuff that was added in Classic Creatures.
Yeah, and any other updates we made, just, going through it. So it's been overhauled. So, if you really want, you can still use it if you want to use an older version. But I'm gonna go. I think we've answered enough questions.
That sounds good.
And I don't even know what we're going to talk about next week. But I'm sure we'll come up with something. Well, there's no more controversies. Controversies are going away.
I think that I'd rather there not be a lot of controversies. I'm happy to talk about cooler, just fun things, because the world is full of controversies all around us. And
well,
we'll figure it out.
Yes, we will.
And until next time, everyone. Then, if you want to battle the zoo, you have to roll for combat.
That's true.
Take care and have a good week, everybody.
See ya.